I'm
Well,
back.
one of the reasons that today has been chaotic, in a very good way, but we were talking earlier about how what we'll tell you about in a second was actually really helpful for us to see where the framework can be helpful for people with decision-making stuff. So we were involved in a very heated and detailed conversation on social media around flea and tick treatments.
Yep.
And what happened was we were tagged in it to comment on it and to kind of talk about where we're coming from with helping pet parents to make better decisions for themselves. And so this, whilst what we're going to tell you is specific to flea and tick treatments, this is applicable. This is how Fetch is designed to help you think through it, but also where we see that you might need a little bit more guidance in how to think about it. So we'd love some feedback from you guys as well of where it might not be as helpful, where you might be stuck with some of the things so that
Mhm.
we can help you. But what was happening with the conversation was that there was such a polarizing kind of um sorry for if you can hear Lucky. Shh. God.
Uh,
Um uh, there was a lot of polarizing of a kind of black and white scenario. Yes, they're bad, yes, they're good, that kind of a thing.
mhm.
And where we kept coming back to was how the framework has helped us and has helped in terms of our personal dogs, as well as how it's helped us to help clients navigate how to make those decisions. And so we started off with saying with in responses that there is no one size fits all approach to anything. So the idea is rather than us giving our agency away and just deferring to other people with what should we do, how do we actually run that through something that's helpful to figure out where we might have questions on something or where we don't feel good about something or where we might not be able to hear our own voice because the situation is too intense or too triggering or what have you. And so having the framework to help guide us through a kind of step by step to give us something to bounce against so that we can see where our next step might be. And our next step might be, I need to go and talk to my vet to get more information. Or my next step might be, I'm going to go and look at the ingredients in that food. Or my next step might be, actually, this might be beyond a nutrition question and it might be a pain question, those sorts. And so therefore I need to go and consult somebody over here. And what we saw was happening in the conversation was that as people were throwing around their opinions of this or that, there was very little opportunity to really where people were not really explaining the why behind their decisions. And I think that's where we're really adamant with Fetch that it becomes a tool to help you figure out your why. So it's almost irrelevant what the decision is that you take and more that you are confident in your why for any particular decision. And so we thought we would kind of use that as a kind of starting point for the conversation tonight and bring you guys into it and hear your thoughts on all of this. But it was so interesting to see. I mean, there were like, what, like close to like 300 comments going back and forth. I mean, it was
We've
insanity.
spent hours on there today, just kind of bouncing back with people and having discussions and trying to keep up. It's been absolutely crazy, but really interesting. And I think, like Alexia was saying, it really opened our eyes to a lot of because we're very aware that in our echo chamber within our space that we don't often encounter. Well, we do when we meet guardians that are looking to understand that what these products potentially can do to their dogs. But the outside of that, we haven't spoken to those people so much. But now, because of this post, it was on LinkedIn, so it's a very different audience from kind of Facebook and Instagram. Now we're starting to see the different arguments that are coming at us, which is great because we need that because it gives it basically means we're running it through Fetch every time to answer the questions and the statements that they're making. There was one guy in particular that was absolutely adamant that we need to be protecting our dogs, so we need to be using them. So we went back with the data sheet, we extracted some of the information from the data sheet and said, well, they're not preventatives, the data sheet clearly states there are treatments, a treatment, sorry. So we were going back, but he hasn't replied to that bit yet. So it's interesting to see, we'll wait and see. But it's the way that we're working through everything is, again, keep putting it back through the fetch, get curious, and then ask the questions, and then go back. So it's been a really kind of eye-opening experience, I think, today, hasn't it?
Yeah, it has. And like you said, it's shown us how we use it and also how you can use it in those difficult conversations, whether that's a conversation with a family member about the dog, whether that's a conversation with the vet, whether that's a conversation with yourself about what to do when you're feeling really lost. And one of the things that came out that I think really sparked that we need to talk about this tonight is that there was a vet on the thread who basically stated that guardians are not smart enough to know when they need to pick a treatment back up or when they need to stop it. And that's where we were absolutely livid and stated that this is about education. This is about education and empowerment. And that is fully what Fetch for us is about. That it's as pet parents, and we're putting ourselves in this category too, that we feel empowered to
Mhm.
ask for the information that we need to make a decision, that we can ask for the tests that we need, that we can ask for the data sheets, that we can say, hold on a second, that doesn't actually jive with my feelings or my beliefs around this, and based on this, right? Like that we can meet as equals in a system that we have been so disenfranchised
Yeah.
from, disempowered within. And so that was like, oh,
Feisty.
we got a little spicy, ladies. We got a little spicy. But I think that's at the heart of it. And it's why we wanted to come back in this conversation today, and also why we keep coming back in the group with let's run this through the lens, because rather than you coming and saying, what's the best supplement for arthritis or whatever, because one, there's no one answer, right? So it's how do you actually find the information that's going to help you to make that decision for yourself? So that I think that's kind of the
Yeah, and it was really it did feel really telling that that vet kind of it made it feel like it was such exclusive information that only they had access to. But the data sheets are all online. It's really easy to find a data sheet. You just literally Google datasheet simparico.trio.gov.uk and it will get you to the government website, and it will just pull it up as a PDF, and you can go through it. And I think that I'm not sure if you saw it in the group, but I posted a similar thing about three colleagues that had gone through a similar experience with Brevecto. They'd had some behaviour changes. The Guardian had noticed that it coincided with the treatment being given, and then she stopped it, and the behaviour stopped. And collies in the actual data sheet are mentioned as being super sensitive to it, and particularly the merles. So that, but that's known, that's on the data sheet, and the vet had never mentioned it. And all the vets kept saying when they went to the for the appointments about the behaviour changes was just get a behaviourist, just get a trainer. But they that's what that guy was saying as well, wasn't it? We got to follow the instructions, we got to follow the veterinary advice. Well, the vets have the advice in the data sheet, but they're for whatever reason choosing not to join those dots.
Mhm.
So that's when it's up to us to start learning this stuff so that we can advocate for the dog, and we advocate for ourselves as well. And I think that's really important for ourselves because again, as women, we're silenced a lot, particularly within the medical field, particularly in that, because, well, that's a whole nother subject, but you know, we're we're kind of used to that. And actually stepping up and using our voice and speaking up can be quite difficult for us sometimes. Well, I know it is for me, but you know, and I think part of that, part of Fetch is if we've got a process to work through, it gives us the confidence to be able to kind of step up and use our voice rather than kind of, oh yeah, well I read it somewhere on and my friend said, you know, it's that you've actually got, well, no, actually, this is why, and you can go in prepared. I think that's really important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just to quickly say too, this isn't about vet bashing whatsoever.
No, not at all.
Vets are really important, and this
Yeah.
isn't about avoid your vet. This is about how do we have
Conversations.
meaningful conversations, and how do we actually start to shape the industry that is meant to actually serve our dogs? We are part of shaping that industry. So
Yeah,
that's where
that's
we're.
just our rant for today. Right, where are we?
So
Sorry.
yeah, so we wanted to kind of use that as a springboard, not specifically to speak about flea and tick stuff, although obviously if you guys wanted to speak about that, we're more than happy to do that. But more about what are some of the struggles that you may be having, and how can we help you better fine tune the Fetch framework to help you get to some better answers, and therefore to be able to make the steps that feel right for you. Do you guys have anything that you're struggling with right now?
I
I
come
mean,
back to you in a second because I'm just finishing my dinner
Oh,
and then
lucky
I'll be
you.
back. I, when I haven't got a mouthful of food, I'll be back in a couple of minutes.
Marvelous.
Mickey, were you going to say something?
yeah, for us, it's just the same old with Loki. Um, we have been back to Chris, which is our lovely vet who treats from both sides homeopathically and has to, if we have to, add some pharmaceuticals in there,
Yep.
which I'm very comfortable with. So Loki's just finished a course of antibiotic eye drops for both eyes and a corneal gel because he had another ulcer, but in the other eye, um, from scratching his eye. And nothing has changed. I've kept everything exactly the same. He has the same food every single week, and everything else is perfect. His toilets are perfect. His weight stays at 25 kg every single week when I weigh him, which, Stacey, that was something that just
Yeah, we
absolutely
struggled with. Yeah.
spiraled and raw. I think he got up to 30 kg. It was crazy.
Yeah.
He can tolerate everything now, although I'm having problems with the bone broth, but I've done the fetch thing that you've come back to me in the group with. So I put him on bone powder. No, I put him on eggshell.
Mhm.
Because actually he isn't a dog that tolerates bone very well, and that's a good alternative. So you having that framework worked really well. So
Good.
hopefully that will help with other aspects. And it's beef bone, so is it affecting his eye? Because I know he has got a bit of an intolerance. So I'm hoping that will kind of clear up. But yeah, we're just constantly fighting this losing battle with his eyes. It feels like, although they are okay, Stacey, I sent you a picture the other day that
So I
I
will
mean,
get back. Sorry, it's just.
no, that's okay. But it was the first time in a very long time that he's looking at me with both his eyes open. So that, and that's a huge thing because he's normally got one eye closed because he
Yeah.
scratched it or whatever. So I've got we've just finished the homeopathic course that's done. The antibiotics is done. So what can I do now to help support him so we don't go back to needing antibiotics and the homeopathic treatment? I suppose for me, when I haven't changed anything, so we have like a good 2 weeks, and then something flares. So I suppose what can I help support him with, because it's obviously an allergy of some sort, but I'm assuming it's not food because it would be every week, every day. I
Well,
don't know. I'm stuck.
well, first of all, so when you're saying that he's been on a course of antibiotics, he's been to the vet, what did Chris the vet diagnose? What did he say?
He seems to think it is allergies.
Okay.
So we spoke through allergy testing, and
Wow.
he said, although that it is a good option, he said, but ultimately, what can we do with that information?
Mhm.
He said it could come back he's allergic to grass. Well, you can't avoid grass for the rest of your life. So he spoke again, probably a bit like the fetch lens. What is that information going to break down? And he explained it. So we've kind of ruled out allergy testing and more just how we can support him through his allergies, because he hasn't got anything wrong with his eyes. He doesn't have a tropion or anything like that. So it is something that's irritating him.
Mhm.
So what is it, kind of thing?
Okay, so what we would how why don't we flip this? Why don't you walk us through how you've used the framework to start looking at this?
So I used to fluctuate kind of between liver proteins, um, because just give him a bit of variety, because all he has is pork, because I know that that's a real good base for him and it doesn't affect him.
Mhm.
Turkey upsets his stomach and things like that. So I run through just kind of the pork. And then I slowly introduced a different liver protein
Mhm.
to see if that would cause an allergy reaction. And because for me, it feels like Loki reacts in different ways. Like he doesn't really follow a pattern. So it's really hard to kind of follow that F.E.T.C.H framework unless I'm just not doing it right. But sometimes it will take like 4 weeks for him to have a reaction. Sometimes it takes 2 weeks. So there's no like real pattern. But at the minute he is on horse, which seems to be, and I don't know, again, he's just been on antibiotics. So am I in a bit of a placebo that it's not the horse liver that's not causing him to have a reaction? It's because he's had the antibiotics, or it's such a
Yeah.
difficult space to be in with him. But he's so fit and well in himself, the best that he's ever been, even with this heat. Obviously, he's an English Bulldog. I was petrified when it got up to 31
Yeah.
degrees. I mean, it didn't bother him. He just coped so well, but it's just eyes. And obviously very important. If he was itching somewhere else, I could deal with that, but itching his eyes constantly is
Yeah.
not brilliant.
So we know that I'm just because so in terms of energetics with the pork, that's pretty neutral in terms of energetics. I can't my brain went completely frazzled then. I just yeah. So that's pretty neutral. So that's a good place to be in the fact that we're not pushing either way. We're kind of staying in that middle zone.
Yeah,
But generally he's quite a warm boy off the top of my head, isn't he?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
pretty warm.
He's not a sunbather, is he? He doesn't like going out. No, that's memory starting to work.
It's
Um,
I suppose you don't know him inside and out, so it's the amount of time rang you like I can't do this anymore. I mean, it got to the point, I would say probably about 8 weeks ago, 9 weeks ago, that I just thought I'm just gonna put him on kibble because I've tried absolutely everything, and you know that like every single thing that I can think of to do it. Obviously, I didn't. I had my paddy and I dealt with
yeah, but
it.
we
But
that's part of the process, isn't it? We all go, it's what else, it can feel like that overwhelming feeling of what now, what to do.
yeah, and that's it. So obviously he's on the fresh food that I cook for him every 4 days. It's a very lucky boy. Um, in terms of like the holistic stuff, I bought the whole holistic first aid kit now, so I've got that at my disposal.
But
Um, so yeah, he's been on calendula, Hep bar Solve. Euphrasia was a new one Chris wanted to try because that's good for the eyes. So he's had a good treatment of that for like 14, 15 days as well. So yeah, I don't know what else I can kind of add in to help support him more, is I suppose is my question. How does that work into his framework?
Well, this is where using the framework, actually going through it can help you. So obviously, with me not knowing Loki well, I'll pose some different questions. You might have already gone over this with Stacey privately, but I think it will be helpful to talk about this like
mhm.
in this space. So, how long have you had him just on pork?
Oh, since he went on to Cooked, which was before Christmas last year.
But you had dabbled with other proteins during that time, though, hadn't you, as well?
So
It wasn't always just pork, was it?
So he started his cooked diet in August, and I'd done a combination of turkey and pork, and then by October he was fully on pork because the turkey gave him bad belly.
Okay. So my first thing, and Stacey, you can jump in, but like with me being more neutral to this, or like what's the word? Like not knowing.
Yeah, distanced.
New to this, distant to it. Yeah. My first thing would be looking at how do you start integrating more proteins into the mix to test
Yeah.
what he's actually not doing well with, because we're assuming he's not doing well with something, but you've had him on the same thing for a long time now, so he might actually be able to tolerate some other things. So it
Okay.
would then start introducing. So if you're taking the different beefs, the different livers to test different proteins, and he's doing well, that might be an indication that he would do well with the muscle meat of that protein.
Okay. Yeah.
And so I would start looking at introducing a bit of a rotation. And again, you start small with anything and you want to track. So when you're saying to me, I haven't noticed any differences, or this isn't shifting. There doesn't seem to be a pattern. That's when it becomes imperative to actually start diving a little bit deeper, because there will be something that's underlying it that it'll probably be you've just not seen it yet. And the pattern might be 4 weeks, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, right? It's not
Yeah.
always 4 weeks the whole time. But the more you do it, the more you'll start to see certain things pop up. Lucky enough.
Food lady.
It's it,
He
it's
makes the best noises, though.
it's
Uh,
like having a toddler, I swear to God.
Pass a wine for you, Lynn. Yeah.
God. But that, so I would start looking at that, because we also don't want to go too far where we're only giving one protein and the body just becomes so used to that you actually develop an intolerance to that.
okay, yeah, makes sense.
And in terms of creating, I agree with Stacey, like creating the kind of neutral profile, but that doesn't have to be with just using neutral
Yeah.
proteins. That can be by combining like duck and venison. So taking
Hmm.
a really warming protein with a cooling protein, putting them together either in the same meal or just in the same day can create a more neutral profile. So you might be able to start doing some of those things where you're bringing in other types of things for him to get nutrition from, basically, and to start exposing his body to other things, whilst also considering how do you support the gut in that transition to new things. So if
Yeah,
he's a tendency to have runny tummies, like with the turkey or something, adding something in to help support the gut while you're doing that. So that could be a bone broth, that could be a colostrum, that could be a slippery elm or a marshmallow root, or those kinds of things that you would add in to help support. So that is like the fresh food component of it. I would start to look at where am I asking yourself, what am I testing? So that would be one of the things, like, okay, I want to test if he can handle duck. So
mm,
I'm gonna start tracking duck, and I'm gonna give it a few, I'm gonna do it small, and then I'm gonna increase it a little bit and see how he does. Great, we know that. Next, I'm gonna test this. So you're not throwing in 2 or 3 different proteins at once that you haven't tested. You do it one at a time,
yeah,
so that you can easily eliminate it if there's an issue. It's that targeted approach again, right? Like, I'm going to test this for this long for this reason to see if he can do it. And then you get the data from that, and that
mm,
helps inform you. Then from the energetics side of things, we're not only looking at warming and cooling when we're looking at energetics, but we also look at, through the TCM lens, organ systems. And I know we've talked to you about this before, but again, I'm bringing it in to kind of flesh this out. Eyes are directly related to the liver.
yeah,
So not only would,
Which links with allergies as well. So it's that the overload. Yeah.
yeah, so it would indicate to me that there's probably some level of stagnation going on with that system. And again, when we're talking TCM, it's not just about the physical organ, it's about what the liver system is
yeah,
talking about, what the liver governs in the body. And so as an example, for a human example, something that's been going on with me personally as I've gone further into perimenopause is that dry eye has become a real problem for me, especially if I'm spending a lot of time in front of the computer. So I know that that's related to stagnation in the liver. It doesn't mean that I have a physical liver issue. It's that that system isn't operating as
Is it a bit
well,
sluggish?
a bit sluggish. So what I've started doing, drinking it right now, is I have a dandelion, burdock, and hawthorn, which happens to be for heart, but dandelion and burdock are herbs that are known for supporting the liver system. And I've noticed a difference in my eye by just changing that. So again, with that targeted approach, I was curious, what if that's the only thing that I change?
yeah,
What does that tell me? And I'm noticing, okay. So where I would normally have dry eye, or like I notice it gets worse in the afternoon. So this is the other thing to track. Is there a time of
Yeah.
day that something is consistently happening for the dog?
which it was night, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
It
I,
was overnight during the liver
yeah,
Right.
time on the TCM clock. So again, when you start to join those bits together, you're starting to see its eyes, and when he was doing it was overnight.
Yeah, because we'd wake up to him either crying where he's scratching himself, or we'd wake up to him almost with two black eyes in the morning where he's got himself during the night. And it still is following that pattern.
Yeah.
He
Okay.
doesn't generally itch during the day, it is at night.
Okay. So that's information that you're tracking, right? Like you're starting to build that picture, like Stacey said. The other side of the TCM stuff is that they also look at emotions and what organ system is linked to certain emotions. So the liver system is associated with anger. It's associated with frustration because it's also linked with the gallbladder. So if you think those sorts of like those sorts of systems that are or those sorts of feelings that are like you're holding something in or you're not letting something go, you're not processing something.
It's stuck.
It's
Yeah.
stuck, right? And so it will come out in these flares. So that could be the eye, that could be through skin, could be skin around the eye, all of that kind of stuff. So there, it would be looking at what things, not necessarily directly food related, but what other things in the dog's life or in our lives as guardians, because they pick up on our energies. And
Yeah.
they, and I've seen this through animal communication stuff. Oftentimes, the dog will start exhibiting a physical ailment that is identical to the owner's, identical.
Okay.
So it's also looking at taking that slightly broader perspective of what else could be going on that you might not immediately think of. And you might not think, oh, it's, well, doesn't have anything to do with food. I've not changed the washing liquids or any of that kind of stuff. But what other things, this is where the curiosity comes in to inform this. What other things could possibly be going on within me, within the dog, within the family, within doggy daycare, did they go on a walk and they were triggered by something? Like I'm dealing with this right now with Lucky where he's refusing to go out. He will not go out for walks. I have to physically like put him in his carrier and go out. I'm applying this same level of curiosity to figure out what has triggered this.
Yeah.
And we're going through everything. We're literally pinging ideas between each other. Like, oh, hang on, have we considered this? And oh, what about that? And then that happened that day, didn't it? And then trying to build this picture of questions and ruling stuff out. Because once you've ruled something out, then you know that you can move on to the next thing.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
okay, that's dealt with. It's not that. Right, next thing.
Yeah.
What
And
can I get curious about this time?
And even stuff like right now, he's like absolutely sitting here whining his head off because I'm on the call. I'm also aware that some of his issues creep up when I'm super busy.
Yeah.
So he's either not getting the attention that he normally gets, or he's picking up on my stress, right? So those are things that you don't normally pay attention to or they don't seem to be directly related to the situation, but it could be. And this isn't about blaming, this isn't about shaming or anything that it's looking at what other things can I possibly be curious about that could be playing a role? And then what can I do to help support that? And like right now, there's literally nothing I can do for him right now,
Hmm.
right? Just sort of have to accept, sorry, bud, but you're gonna have to sit here and whine, right? Like it's not it's balancing that too of like I will deal with your needs when we are finished with this, but right now I cannot give you the attention that you want.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, Stacey, but I am a very anxious person. I always have been. So it could well be that he's picking up on that. And my daughter has type 1, which possibly, I think we kind of said, could it be the alarms that make
Mhm.
me anxious? Because there's certain tones for certain alarms, and I react to the alarms in different ways. If it's the really loud one, then that's an
Yeah.
emergency. I need to get to a low blood sugar.
Yeah.
Is it the high one? I'm probably not as anxious. That probably annoys me more than anything. So probably getting a read off of both of those.
Mhm.
But I must say that by some miracle, Mia's pancreas, well, not her pancreas, her pump is doing the job that it's meant to be doing, and we've had a really good run of blood sugar. And
Fab.
actually, he's not done his eyes, but again, is it this because he's had antibiotics? So it's all kind of just frustratingly in the same time, but yeah, it could very well be. And I suppose if it is the anxiety, I have got SOS rescue remedy stuff now
Yeah,
for
so then
it.
it would be, and that's exactly it. Then what can we do to support him from
Yeah,
that stress and anxiety point of view so that that doesn't it doesn't become a trigger, or it lessens the trigger, so it's not it doesn't present itself in such a way that he really goes to town on his eyes. So what
Yeah.
are there homeopathic stuff? Are there other things that we could be adding into the diet? Some vitamin C, because that will get depleted with the, which is rosehip powder, that kind of thing. How can we support his system with some other potential supplements or additions or slight tweaks to the diet to support what the stress does, so that
Yeah.
we're kind of rebalancing the books a little bit. So that's why that kind of curiosity bit, it's my favorite bit, being nosy. Love it. Like,
Yeah.
just keep digging, just keep asking the next
Yeah.
questions. I'm back there with Ted at the moment. We went 153 days without a seizure. Saturday night, boom, he's back again. So,
Yeah.
and I've been right. What did we do? Where did we go? Well, we've been away, so he's been quite not stressed, happy stressed. Like,
Yeah.
we're away and he's getting extra walks, and he's had a bad shoulder, so he's been on some meds because I was using anti-inflammatories. So there's all of those things are back in play again. So I'm exactly at the same point with Ted.
Yeah. Just kind of
I'm
work.
back to the drawing board. I'm just like, okay, another one. Round
I,
one, we're back to, we start again day 3 now, or day 4, whatever, since post seizure. And it
yeah.
didn't fit the pattern of his previous ones, which were normally around the full moon. We were a couple of days out. So, there's all those moving parts and those variables, but it's still, there's things for me to consider, so that I know that he'd been on some of those meds. Could I have given him a bit more detox support? Probably, but I was on holiday, so I hadn't taken the right stuff with me. But it's kind of in hindsight. So now I know that if he's going to have an anti-inflammatory, I probably need to be putting some detox stuff, some milk thistle or something into his diet to kind of support that alongside him having that, because he needs the meds 100%. I'm not going to give them to him when he's in pain. A bit like with Chris offering the antibiotics, it's part of a protocol, it's part of a treatment plan, and that's absolutely right. But what
Yeah.
can I do to support him whilst he's going through that? And that's what I now need to start thinking about for Ted.
Yeah, and I think the good thing is with Fetch is like you look at Loki and he is the happiest boy. His bum does not stop moving, so you wouldn't look at him and think he's an anxious dog. I mean, he's fast asleep in front of the aircon currently, snoring his head off. Like, to me, that is an anxious dog. Like, he doesn't whine, he doesn't make a sound, he just snores and
But
needs
it
to
could just be that that's how it presents
be
for him.
coming out
It's
of
the
the fire.
stress
Yeah,
that comes out through his eyes. That's so some dogs, it will be chewing at their feet, or it will come out in
yeah,
another way. So that's just Loki's way of, just I want to rub it away, almost like I just,
yeah,
get it
yeah, which
away.
makes sense. So I suppose with the holistic support, because ideally I would prefer to go holistically, what do I start looking at for support? I suppose that's where I get stuck.
What
Is
what kind of
can I,
support do you mean? What are you referring
I
to?
wanted to support his liver a little bit more. Where would I start looking for liver support? Because we've done a full detox. I followed up with everything kind of that Stacey you recommended, which helped him massively. So I don't really want to detox him again if I don't need to, because that was a horrific 2 weeks. But what can I add into his diet that will help with his liver and
Well,
help boost it?
this is part of where you would want to work with your vet. So if you've got the
Yeah.
holistic vet, talk to him about this. So this is also part of what are the questions that I want to ask the vet, right? So if you make a list of those things of based upon, and I'm saying that because although we say things like, oh, milk thistle is great for the liver, or a combination of like chlorella and
Yeah, fulvic and humic, that kind of stuff.
whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
those can be really great. But if you're dealing with a particular situation and you're working with a vet who's treating something, this is where you absolutely want to talk to him about this. These are my concerns. I want to ask you, based off of this protocol and what we're doing, what do you think about this? Because the other thing is too, when you're using any kind of medications, and remembering too that natural um, things, foods like
Doesn't mean harmless types. Yeah.
Yeah.
doesn't mean harmless. There can be interactions. So this is where you absolutely would want to say to him, can you guide me on either some homeopathic remedies or other natural remedies that would coincide with this to help support Loki's detox? And he might say to you, actually, I don't want you to give him any kind of detox right now because of this, this, and this. Let's
Mhm.
do it then, right?
Yeah.
So, but it's coming up with the questions that you have and why you have those questions
Yeah.
instead of what's good for a liver detox, because it
Yeah.
might not be good for your dog in this
Like that.
situation.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if you're identifying, I'm thinking this might be the issue, I'm concerned about this, these are the questions I have, that's super to go to Chris and tell him that. And then he can pinpoint what it is. And he can also alleviate what the emotion that's underpinning why we're worried about something, right? Reassure you with this is why I'm doing this,
No, that makes sense.
right?
The thing is, I've almost got like a list of questions like, could it be this? Could it be that? So I suppose I just need to go to him now and say
Yep.
this before it gets back to the state that it was. What can we now do?
Exactly. But when you've been tracking Mickey and you've got all that information,
We've got
Yeah.
data.
that arms him with so much data to actually understand what's going on instead of, I don't know, look, he's just been off. But if you
Yeah.
say, look, I've been tracking this and this, we've noticed this protein does this, we've noticed da 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 da, that gives him a really clear indication of what's going on, and he can then target support instead of, well, let's try this and see.
Yeah.
And if
No,
it
that
is potentially stress related, but potentially around the alarm and stuff, if you've got some kind of, yeah, we did have a little blip and there was a blip, then he can start to build that picture too and go, right, okay, so if that happens, he needs this homeopathic remedy to help support him when he
yeah.
gets into that state. Because like we said, if that he's not stressed in a outward way that you might like the stress panting or stress digging, which is Ted's favorite thing. If it doesn't present that way, but it's actually the rubbing, then that how do we minimize the stress so that he doesn't need to do it?
Yeah.
Because if
Yeah,
it's
no,
the stress causing they're not necessarily itchy, but he's just rubbing because he's stress we need to deal with.
yeah. Which it could well be that
Yeah.
he hasn't got itchy eyes anymore, and it is just he's rubbing his eyes.
Yeah.
I think I had mentioned it previously, but I have now met an incredible new chiropractor locally to us in Horsham.
Okay.
And she's seeing Ted on Saturday, and the pre-questionnaire and the stuff beforehand, she is absolutely incredible. And I in my head would still have a curiosity about whether some of that also could be because if you think about the fact the kind of the way he does it, has that caused some kind of pain or something further down, some tension in the fascia, and actually those flares. So again, this is just another part of curiosity. Are those flares related to potentially some stress and also some pain that just flares up again? Like if you get a niggly back, you'll do something and then it'll flare up again and then it dissipates for a bit and then it comes back again. So the actual movement that he's doing and being a bulldog, knowing that their conformations can be a little wonky,
Yeah.
could that be a factor as well? I can send you I can message you
Yeah,
later
if you
her
can.
details. She is incredible. And I was speaking to her about another bulldog client that I've been working with, and she wants to see him as well because of the issues that he's been having. And I think again about getting curious and thinking about the other team members that we can get on board. I'm seeing more and more now with a lot of the clients that I've worked with recently that pain assessment has to be part of the bigger picture,
Yeah.
because the pain element is not necessarily being, if we're ruling out food and we've ruled out microbiome and we've done those other things, actually, is there a pain element? So
Yeah.
that could be triggering it as well. So it could still be interlinked with the kind of stress, but has the stress caused some tension in his shoulders and he's trying to rub it out and it's in his across the top of his head. So it's all of those things, and that they've got the corkscrew tail,
Yeah.
all of that stuff. I think we need to start. So if for in terms of working with someone like Louisa, the chiro, it'd be kind of tracking where was he walked, and then she asks for videos, so she kind of gets a pre-assessment of him before she comes to the house. But she's brilliant. She comes to you, so you don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, that would be good. And again, if it's nothing, then we've ticked something else off the list.
Exactly. You've got
Yeah.
information, you've got data, so it's just another thing ticked off the list.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it might be
Yeah.
it could be the fact that actually it's completely pain related and he needs some pain medication rather than this is where the ruling stuff out, getting curious, and then your holistic team is the big part of the framework.
Because it
Yeah.
could be that his dominant, so we all and our dogs have a dominant constitution in TCM. So it could be that Loki's dominant constitution is wood,
Mhm.
which is governed by the liver,
Liver.
that's where he is going to exhibit
It's his
imbalance.
weak spots. Yeah.
Yeah, like for Lucky, it's his kidneys. So I noticed a pattern of stress related things where he would little bouts of incontinence because
Oh,
that's how he was expressing his stress because that's his weak system. Or like, do you know people that whenever they get sick, it's a stomach bug, or whenever they get sick, it's like
Bronchitis.
bronchitis or
Yeah.
whatever, right? It's that same kind of thing. So it might not be that there is actually a liver issue. It's just that that's his dominant organ system and that's how
mhm.
he's processing stuff. And that will help you then figure out what the team is. Because the other thing too is like if it is that he's exhibiting stress or pain through dealing with the pain through his eyes, and it's related to, say, the stress in the household. Use the alarm as an example, your daughter's alarm. So then we start to look at, so how do we deal with that on multiple levels? That would be both reducing his stress through, say, homeopathic stuff, but it could also be that you start counter conditioning him to the alarm at a low level, right? There
Yeah,
would be a behavioral thing that you start to address with it. So that's where we're saying there is no one. It can sound overwhelming, but I'm hoping that this actually makes you feel hopeful that there are all of these other ways that you can be looking at it to get at the root of it. So when it feels like I've tried everything,
yeah,
we
And
haven't tried everything. There will be
yeah.
something else that can help. There's just a missing puzzle piece.
Yeah. And Louisa does Reiki as well. So from an energy perspective, that could be another really beautiful modality to look at in terms of just helping him move that stress through his body and so a bit like Alexia was saying about the counter conditioning, could you ground by using a snuffle mat if the alarm's gone off to let him dissipate that energy and get it out of him so that it's
yeah,
not, we've actually got it out of his body. Could you a dig pit or something to help him move that energy through his body? So Reiki could be a really lovely complementary modality to that.
yeah. No, definitely. I think just even just talking about it then, it's just given me loads of ideas that I've got multiple lick pads and things that if our alarm goes off, I could give him something to just relax him for that minute
And
or
even just, oh, thank you, Loki, for comforting me, or thank
yeah,
you for making us aware, to kind of almost energetically acknowledge him and thank him for being aware that something needed to be done. But don't worry about it. Have a lovely, you don't need to worry about it. This is my job. You go relax. Kind of show that to him, kind of energetically, if that waffle
Yeah.
made any sense.
yeah, no, it does. And the thing is, he has alerted to her, and obviously he's not trained, he's not a hypo hound,
But
but
he's connected, he
no,
knows. Yeah.
without a doubt, he knows when her blood sugar's dropping because there's been times at night that he's got off the bed and then 2 minutes, 3 minutes later, alarm's gone off. Like he knows,
Yeah.
and I always give him a treat, even though he's not trained for that reason, but he's acknowledged that something's
Yeah.
happening. So yeah, maybe I just need to put a bit more effort into just rewarding almost the acknowledgement of something
Yeah,
is
just
happening.
thanking him for it. Thanks, Loki. Great job. Here, have a treat.
Yeah,
And again, that licking or that chewing is going to really help move that energy through and help him ground that rather than
yeah,
it getting caught up anywhere else for him to. And it could be that that's what he's trying to do with the rubbing. He's trying to ground it out of his system. He's got like this fizz and he's trying to move it through. Ted's is digging. He's stress digging. Diggies?
okay.
Stress diggies. That's a whole new one. But when he gets stressed, he digs carpet or the stones in the back garden. If he's
Okay.
stressed, he will go, if the back door's open, he's out there like a shot and there are stones swinging up at my back door. And I know that he's stressed, so I need to help him during that time because he's carrying something and I need to help him and I
Yeah,
need to help him move that through. So it's just being aware of some of those things as well and adding that to kind of your tracking and just like, oh, that happened. And like if you were to start tracking that if he did alert overnight, in correlation with potentially another flare up, how far away was that? Is it 2 or 3 days? Is it a week? But is it within that kind of time frame? It
yeah,
just helps carry on building that picture so that you can start to spot that pattern that we haven't quite got yet.
yeah. No, that makes sense. Thank you.
You're
You're
welcome.
welcome. It's good fun when you start getting curious, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It's so interesting because, like I say, you wouldn't look at him and think, "Oh, he's stressed," but it might, it might just be coming out in a different way.
Yeah, well, what's the analogy about the swan? They're all graceful on the water, and underneath they're actually like
Yeah.
that, and you just can't see it. And
That's
it could well be the same for him. Some dogs are just very much more vocal at stress, and Ted is one of them.
yeah. Like,
Ah, bless him.
Lynn, is there anything that you'd like to talk about? Do you want us to run through anything with you?
Oh God, where to start? No. No, what you've just all been discussing has been really good because I've been sat here while you've been saying it, thinking, right, amber shadow, yeah, okay, I can look into this, I can consider that, look at this.
Hmm.
I think my problem is I've just got so much going on that I need to look into. We've already sent off a microbiome test for Amber, who we
Fab.
discussed last week.
Yep.
So I'm just waiting on results back from that before we sort of assess anything else,
Hmm.
really, see what's going on with that. But I'm then thinking, well, I ought to recap all my, because I did acupressure for animals and we used a lot of 5 elements. So I think
Lovely.
you recommended the 5 paws thingy
Four
book.
plus five directions. Yep.
That's
Yeah,
it,
that one.
yeah.
Yep.
So I thought, right, I've really got to get back into that and really look at that. And I think my issue is probably me with the dogs because I'm just full on. I don't relax. I don't switch off. And I think the dogs pick up on that heck of a lot. So, but that's down to
Guilty.
me to try and sort out. I mean, at the minute, I've got Amber here, the same Bernard, just pacing from room to room, sat here for a bit, having a fuss. Then she paces round, then she's back, then she's gone, then she's back. And I'm just trying to think, right, nice and calm, just settle down. Yes, I know it's hot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, the weather at the moment's not helping either, is it? Because
Oh, good.
everybody's, and especially on a St. Bernard, she's going to be feeling it a little bit more, bless her.
Running around to bed, she just comes alive. And you're thinking, really?
Is
But
that
yeah,
every day that in the evening that happens? Is that a time that
yeah,
she
at
kind
the
of
minute,
wakes
because
up?
it's just so hot. Yeah. During the day, she's settled, she's pretty good. But now we go out about 9 o'clock to do the chickens and ponies, and she just ran around like an idiot. And she
Yeah,
goes
so
in the
again, that might
stream.
be interesting to look at. I mean, it could, like you say, it could just be that it is the heat, but if
Yeah,
that was to continue when the weather gets cooler,
yeah,
is that a pattern that we're picking up on? Is that a body system we need to be looking at within the
yeah,
TCM clock? So the fact that you're starting to observe this stuff is gold because the more
mm,
that you can kind of observe this and get to know her and her patterns gives you those clues where to start digging next.
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I think what I'm trying to do is put the fetch into play with everything. And
Yeah.
sometimes it is you struggle and think, well, hold on a minute, how do I apply this? How do I consider this? But I mean, lucky enough, touch wood, we haven't really had to go to the vets. We have registered with an independent vet because a lot of them around here are with the big groups.
Yeah.
And I know someone that does use our vets a lot, and they are quite open to other modalities and considering things. So I am hoping that should I need to for any
Mm.
reason, they are going to be open to either referring to a homeopathic vet if there is one around here and that sort of thing.
Well, and that's the other thing too, Lynn, is like you could use them as your normal vet, and then you could always do telehealth um,
Hmm.
Who's
consultation
that?
with telehealth, where you
Online consults, yeah.
Oh, right. Yes.
a
Yeah.
lot of vets will do that. And so you can have them working together. And that's part of building
Mm-hmm.
the team. So that's part of you going through the fetch framework of identifying what's important to me, what are my priorities when
Yeah.
selecting a vet and when selecting a team. And so that's you putting the puzzle pieces together. So what would you need to do? So maybe that's even how do I find somebody? Maybe one of the questions you ask yourself now is who would be a
Mm,
holistic vet that I'd like to connect with? And you just start a conversation with them now before you need
yeah.
them. That
Yes. Yeah. But a lot of the holistic ones, homeopathic, you can't get to speak to them or use them unless it's a referral from the vet.
so that's something to ask them. Like, do
Mm.
you need a
So,
referral? And in which case, that then gives you something to do and a step to
mm,
take to make that
yeah.
happen if and when you need some things. And that helps
Mm,
reassure you that you've got things in place.
You got your
yeah.
plan. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It'd be nice to have the certain modalities in hand. So,
Yeah,
should you need them, they're there.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Exactly. And I
Mm,
think those components are just as important to the fetch framework in terms of what's going to make me feel good about what it is that I'm concerned about. So if the concern is I want to have the right team put together, or I'm worried about what I would need to do for that. Or the concern is I feel like I need to know more about Chinese medicine. So I want to get freshened up with the systems or whatever. And then you know where to go to
Hmm.
take
Yeah,
those steps so that you're feeling good. Because if you're feeling good, your dog is going to respond to that.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Which is why I found you guys. So hopefully, of what we're on the same page at the moment, which is good.
Fab.
So, yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
And also, I don't know if you guys have seen it, but we have kind of switched some things over. We mentioned this in the little video we posted in the group the other day, but we've created a Fetch starter pack, which is when you sign up for our mailing list, you get like it's a Dropbox link. And we put all of our PDFs up there, and we're going to keep adding to that as a kind of resource library. So you can keep going into it as we add new things in. But one of the things that we put up there is a PDF it's like Bridging the Gap. And it's all about how to have conversations with your vet, how to handle stuff before you go to the vet, what questions you might want to ask a potential vet that you're thinking about, all of that kind of stuff. So if that's a concern is of how do I put the team together, you can translate that to like a chiro or an osteopath or a trainer or whatever. It doesn't matter. It's the
Yeah.
same kind of process for how you would identify who it is you might want to work with, and actually how do you prep for those sessions so that you're getting out of it what it is that you need. So we have that available as a resource for you guys if you want it.
And we also added recently the supplement one as well about kind of how you put a supplement through the Fetch lens. So an actual,
Right.
what to look out for, what ingredients might not be so great, and what we're actually looking for. And again, why we're using them, why are we using it as part of the targeted approach? What's the purpose it's serving, and getting us to think a little bit deeper about you know just because it's got 20 products in it, does that actually make it better? Because it's kind of a shotgun approach. Well, actually maybe not. We would argue that potentially we need to scale it right back, and it's potentially only one or two, because you can't actually track within those 20 ingredients what's actually working for your individual dog. So that's on there as well. I think you're both on the mailing list, aren't you? I can check.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so.
Yeah. I'll
um
double check if I can find the starter pack.
Yeah, so the email that went out on Friday had the link into if you
Right.
got the email last week, I did a section on it, and you should just be able to click through from there into the Dropbox, and then it's divided into F.E.T.C.H. So in F you've got the bone broth one, E energetic paw print, T is the targeted stuff, so that's the supplements.
Right. Yeah.
Curiosity is the vet stuff. We did one on vegan dog food, just in case you ever want to go in that rabbit hole. What else? There's another one in there. That's the supplements as well, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Curiosity. And then the holistic one is the energy practices. So, like we
Mm.
said, we're going to build that as we kind of have these conversations and realize what people need a little bit of help with, and how we can build some resources to go in there.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah.
Good.
Mhm.
I'll check. But yeah, I've just written a note to myself to check. There you go.
I'll check my emails and go through. That's fine. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think every now and then I get an email, but yeah, it's like
I
sport.
think you're on there. I think you are. I'll double check. But if you didn't get the one on Friday, let me know, and I can send you the link for the Dropbox folder, because I know that you're on I'll double check that you're on the mailing list, and then I can send you the link to the folder. And then once you've got that link, it'll always be that link. When you know that we've added something, you just click in there and go into whichever folder it's gone into.
Hmm.
So yeah, we're trying to keep up with everything. It's mad.
So was this helpful tonight?
Yeah. Very helpful
Very
again. So
helpful.
yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
That's
Good.
our aim.
Yeah.
Very, very helpful. If anyone wants to look after a bulldog, let me know.
I'm dealing with Ted. I can't deal with anything else right now. But between Ted and Lucky and Loki, we're doing all right, aren't
Insane.
Good Lord.
we?
Right,
We
ladies.
love them though.
We do love them. And like we said, post things in the group. So if you've got any questions off the back of this, or Mickey, as you've been sorting through some things and you've come up with some revelations, share it in the group. And we
Yeah,
can kind of go through
Because it
that.
just helps everyone else, doesn't it? Everyone, once people start to see it in action, they're like, "Oh, okay, that makes sense." So that's why when we're answering the questions, we're kind of coming back with why I put the story up about the post up about Ted, and why what I'm trying to do with him to support his joints at the moment. So it's just showing it in action, And of
Yeah.
course, now I've got to go back to square one because of the seizures. So, it's an ever evolving piece of framework. It's never set. But the more that you get used to it and where your dog is within that, then you can just adapt and you just keep asking the questions and it will get easier and easier each time you do it.
And just to kind of come off the back of that as well, I think part of this is the undoing and the unlearning of the way that in the West in particular, we have sort of assumed that health equals the absence of problems. And so we're constantly trying to like get rid of the problem. Whereas when you start to take a more Eastern influenced perspective, we're looking at health is actually about harmony and balance, and that is changing all of the time. That's
Yeah.
changing throughout the day and day to day. And so we get more comfortable with things being constantly different and not feeling like, oh my God, I've got to get rid of this. I've got to fix this. I've got to stop this. It's actually, what is this telling me about where my dog is at right now? And so, how do I adjust things accordingly to support his balance now?
Mm.
That feels very different.
Yeah.
Because I know I have had the habit, and I still struggle with it, of like you see the symptom and you freak out, and it's like, what do I need to do to get rid of it? And it's like, no, 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 this is information. What is this telling me, either about his body or either being a reflection, a mirror for what
Mhm.
else is going on in our lives? And even looking at, some of the stuff that I'm seeing now from him is not dissimilar from how they talk about when you rescue a dog and they go through the 333 stages of the first 3 days they're figuring out like this home, this new place, and they're probably very shut down. Then 3 weeks they start to open up a little bit, but you don't get to see the full dog until 3 months later. It takes 3 months for them to settle in. We have only been in this country again for 3 months. So he's in that stage of like he's processing a massive life change. And I have to honor that what he's showing now might actually be related to 3 months ago. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily that there's a problem right now and like what's happened immediately. It's like he's finally getting into the space where he can kind of express, this has been a lot for me.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's taking that wider picture.
No, it makes sense. Makes sense when you say it.
The more you
When
the more
trying
you
to,
do it, Vicky, and the more you bring it into the group and we can help you with it, the more you'll be comfortable with it.
yeah. No, it's brilliant. Thank you.
You're
You're very
welcome.
welcome.
You're
All
welcome.
right, ladies, we're gonna sign off for this
Have a
month.
lovely evening, won't you guys?
Okay,
Thanks,
thank you.
Angie.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
See you soon. Take
Thanks.
care. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.